All right, good afternoon, coaches. It's already 3:05. So let's get started. So basically, CoachSG, we have come up with a series of e-workshops. So Azar has delivered a few sessions previously. So the last one that he shared with all the coaches will be on how to use the word out challenge. So today's session is on how to design an e-coaching session. All right. So if along the way, if you have any question to ask, you can ask your question in the comment and we'll try to answer. Okay. All right. So all of us know that when the first detection of the COVID-19 case was being detected in Singapore, a lot of changes has been made in terms of coaching in schools, private coachings, closure of sports facilities, and a lot of coaches are affected by this. And in the past, all of you conduct your lessons physically at stadiums, venues, coaching venues, sports hall, etc., swimming pools. So with the current COVID situation, it's time for us to see how we can move our physical coaching into the virtual space. All right, and it's also time for us to take a step back and to recalibrate our perspective and mindset to deal with this transition. And there are some pointers that would allow us to come out of this situation as better coaches. So actually, all of us coaches can use this time to re-examine our coaching and our method of instruction. All right, in the past, perhaps because your athletes and students are right in front of you and the way you instruct would be a very one-way directive instruction. So, but then if let's say if we are going to move our coaching session into the virtual space, what would be our method of instruction? Is it going to be a one-way or is it going to be more of the interactive, right? And it's also good to spend some time to plan your lesson because it's very different when you conduct an e-coaching session in the virtual space, right? And expect errors in the first few attempts. So for a lot of you, it may be the first time that you will want to conduct an e-coaching session and you may not know what to do. And even if you have planned your lesson, they are bound to have errors. So not to worry, learn from all these errors and hopefully in the few upcoming sessions, you'll become better and better, right? Then the third point is try to provide a rich online learning experience for your athletes, students, participants. But at the same time, don't expect things to be regular because your athletes are also adjusting to this non-traditional scenario. In the past, your coaching session could be very regular in the sense that it's perhaps could be like every Saturday, every Sunday, all right? But then given the current situation, right, it may not be that regular. Perhaps it could only be like once a week when you have a live session. And yeah, less is more. So lessen the activities that you would have under normal circumstances. All right, even a 45 minutes Zoom training session can be meaningful for the first few times. And a shortened sessions allows more focused learning for you and your participants in this time of adjustment. A fifth point, which I feel is very important, is to get in touch with other coaches in the community to exchange practical knowledge, information, and tips, especially on how to use IT to deliver your coaching session. Okay. So some degree of self-doubt and pessimism is normal because some of us coaches may not be very IT savvy and we do not know what are the various e-coaching platform or that we can use to conduct our coaching online. So being open-minded and flexible is the key. All right, take this time to develop new skills that allow you to display your professionalism to employers and future clients as well. All right, this COVID situation is temporary and things will only get better. And the next point would be positive for your athletes. Some of the athletes may come from home environments that are less than ideal. Sports is often an outlet and means for psychological and emotional well-being for them. All right, take it upon yourself to nurture them and bring them the joys of sport during these trying times. Remember, beside a sports coach, you are also a life coach. And one thing that I would like to share with you will be this new initiative by CoachSG. I think some of you may have heard of the Active Edge Circle. All right, there are employment opportunities that you can list in this Active Edge Circle. All right, so check it out. Okay, before I start on the session on how to do how to design a e-coaching session, so perhaps I will want to do a short poll to check or to see if any one of you had already started an e-coaching session. All right, just take a few seconds of your time. Okay, I think most of you have already voted in the poll. All right, so I can see that some of you had already started e-coaching session. Perhaps towards the end of this session, I can invite you to share your experience with the other coaches on what are things that you faced when you started your first e-coaching session. All right, so if you can identify yourself, perhaps you can identify yourself in the comment. All right, and then we will get back to you towards the end of this session. Okay, so do you know the difference between a physical coaching session and an e-coaching session? Of course, they are similar, but then there are key considerations that we have to take into account when we plan or design a training session. All right, this session is really to bring you all through a step-by-step guide, all right, in transiting your coaching journey into the virtual world. All right, and today we'll be using the 3-step coaching process, all right, to assist you all in delivering an effective e-coaching session. So yes, as you can see, this is the coaching process that we are talking about: the plan, deliver, and review. And I'm sure that this is very familiar for most of you. So we'll start with plan. So during the planning stage, all right, so what do we do in the planning stage? So basically, first of all, because it's an e-coaching session, we have to determine what e-coaching platform to use. All right, we'll be having another session tomorrow morning from 10 to 11. So my colleague will be sharing with the coaches on the different types of e-coaching platforms that are available in the market, and the coaches can use it. All right. So once you have determined the e-coaching platform that you would like to use, it's good that you also try it out, all right, to test out the functions. What are functions that they have for you to deliver your e-coaching sessions efficiently. All right, second will be to set your session objectives. And what you want to achieve out of that particular session that you want to deliver. Third, because in the past, you know that your training environment will be your swimming pool, sports hall, stadium, etc. You know the area that you have that you can set up your training. All right. So for e-coaching session, because given the current restriction that only running and brisk walking is allowed in public spaces, so training will have to be, or coaching will have to be conducted at homes. So do consider the constraints of their home. For example, the height of the ceiling, the space that you have or your athletes have, the equipment that they have, all right? And of course, very importantly will be the safety of the participants, all right? Especially if you are going to deliver a e-coaching session to young kids, right? Make sure that there's an adult, all right, nearby or with them to ensure that if there's anything happening to them, there's someone to attend to him or her. Okay, the next step will be designing your activities. So when you design activities, you have to consider the frequency. All right, do communicate with your participants. All right, how many times they would like to have the session, the intensity as well. So you may not. It could be sometimes. It could have been sometimes since you last met your participants. All right, so the intensity should be start at a low intensity, then slowly you progress. Okay, then the time as well, the duration. How long is your session? Is it a 30-minute session or a 1-hour session? And the type of activities that you are going to do during your e-coaching session. Okay, the last step that you want to consider will be to plan the question that you want to ask them. So I think this is very important because by asking the right question, you'll be able to engage them, right, to make your session more interactive. Okay, this is one sample lesson plan you could use to write your lesson. All right. So you may ask that can I still so-called cultivate values in an e-coaching session? All right. My answer is yes. You can still do that. For example, let's say you assign some homework for your athletes to do, and he's supposed to record it and then send it to you to provide feedback. So if your athlete is good enough to do it diligently, this is one value that we can see. All right. So I'm sure that you will be able to specify what are the behaviors that you want to see from your athlete as well.
Dongju, your background
At the end
noise
of
is
this
very
session,
loud.
we'll be able to share all these resources with you, right? There will be a link to be shared. All the resources that we have come up with for this e-coaching series, all right, you'll be published on our website. Okay, so the next step will be on deliver. So I've gone through what are the things to consider during the planning stage. All right, so for the deliver stage, what are the factors that we as coaches want to consider when we deliver the actual session itself? All right, so I will change our toggles between screen. So just give me a minute. So if I can get you all to go to mentimeter.com, use the code 258833 to list down what are the factors that you think that coaches have to take note during the deliver stage. so we can see that there's no way for you to physically manipulate and do correction on drills and exercise. Yes, you are right. So we can't be there to correct their, for example, their swing, how they swing their hand, how they kick a ball. Safety. Yep, safety is very important. Speak clearly, slowly, use more visual. Yes, I agree. So, instructions should be short, and whatever you instruct, whatever instructions that you give to your participants should be loud and clear. Okay, outcome measure. Yep, that's right. Viewers can hear you and are engaged. Sessions do not be allowed to become draggy. Keep energy levels high and end on a high note. Ensure learners gain something out of that session. Right? Yes, I think it's very important to keep your participants engaged so that they will not be bored of your training session. Understanding of content by learners. Yes, check for understanding, whether they understand what you want them to perform during the session itself. Right. Okay, so most of you have covered some of the points that I'm going to share with all of you. So during a training session itself, on the day of delivery, it's good to check that you have everything ready, maybe 30 minutes before the session. Make sure that you have your recording devices plus your accessories. For example, let's say you are using a handphone to do a live streaming, make sure that your handphone is fully charged, you have a selfie stick, yep, and you also make sure that you have the training equipment that you want to use during the session itself. And one important thing to take note is ensure that your environment is bright so that your participants can see you. All right. Then preferably the color of equipment and apparel is in contrast with your recording background. For example, let's say your background is a white wall. All right, you wouldn't want to be wearing something that is white in color. Yeah, so maybe you could be like wearing a red one, a blue top. All right, your equipment as well, so that is in contrast, and your participant can see what you want to demonstrate clearly. Okay, step 2. At the beginning of the session, you will do an introduction. Right, so it's good to set ground rules. Whereas one of the ground rules that you all can set would be to get them to start their video, to open their video, right? So that you can look at them and to observe what they are doing, how are they performing during the session itself. And one ground rules would be to check with your participants, is it okay for you to record the session, right? And to inform them as well, not to share anything that's being recorded with others, all right? Then state the performance outcome clearly. For example, let's say this session is to get them to demonstrate, for example, forehand net lift, right? State the performance outcome clearly so that they know at the end of this session what is the learning outcome for them. And the third point will be reminding them to work in a safe environment. All right, make sure that there are no lying objects around, and please emphasize this safety. All right. So next will be the demonstration and explanation. So make sure that explanation is audible. All right, make sure that they can hear you clearly, loudly. All right, check for understanding. Make sure that they can repeat the learning cues that you have shared with them, and use appropriate learning cues. Make sure that it's precise, all right, short, and use appropriate training equipment as well. So perhaps if you have any training equipment that you would like to use during the session, all right, maybe give it some thought. Whether do they have such equipment at their home as well? If not, how can we modify the equipment? We demonstrate in appropriate angles. So when you are doing your demonstration, do it in an angle such that they can see what you want them to observe. All right. So let's say you want to teach them how you want to demonstrate, let's say, juggling of the ball, for example. All right. Football, juggling of the ball. Your back shouldn't be facing them. All right. You should be facing them, and then they can see how you're going to juggle the ball with the thighs. All right. So it's very visible. And make use of videos when possible and appropriate. So I would think that it's very important to know how to make use of video when you demonstrate and explain, because you can pause the video and share with them the learning cues. All right. For example, let's say you want to do a lunge, a forward lunge. So you can, while playing the video, you can pause at when the so-called the person in the video is doing a lunge, then you can emphasize the learning cues. For example, let's say, okay, when you're doing a lunge, your knee shouldn't be over your toes. All right, this is one learning cues that you can emphasize. And you can repeat your demonstration to reinforce learning cues. So what you can do is, at first you can do a whole demonstration, and then you break down into parts where you share the learning cues of each part, and then you go back to the whole demonstration again. All right. With this, you will reinforce their learning as well. So activities. So after the explanation and demonstration, so it's time to get into the activities. Okay. So in your planning stage, you would have already designed appropriate activities. All right. And there should be progression as well to support the quality of learning. So you wouldn't want to start with something that is very difficult for them to perform. You want to start something that is easy, and slowly you progress to make it more difficult, to provide some form of challenge for them to keep them interested in your session. Right? And this can be done as a homework as well. So your session can be a 30-minute session or even 20 minutes. So it's more of like, during the 20-minute session, you will be explaining, demonstrating, okay, the drills that you want them to do, and then they can bring these activities back to do on their own. And after that, they can submit. They can do. They can record the so-called their training or their performances, and then send it to you for you to provide feedback before their next session. So as coaches, it's very important that we provide participants with feedback. All right, positive feedback, corrective feedback, and praise them as and when you think that they have performed well in the training session. Okay. One thing to take note is, for the start, you may not want to have your coaching sessions to consist of a big group, right? You may not be able to observe all of them. So it'd be good that you start with a smaller group. For example, let's say 6 participants or so around there. Then you can schedule so for the first 30 minutes, I will have the first 6. The next 30 minutes, I can have another 6. Right, step 5 will be the conclusion. So as coaches, at the end of these sessions, we will check for understanding, whether do they understanding what is being shared with them, what is being taught. All right. So yeah, you can ask questions. All right. You can start by asking questions. Okay, tell me what are the learning cues for these particular skills that I've demonstrated. All right. Review learning cues to reinforce learning and assess their learning as well. Then it's also good to explain how the learning outcomes will be linked to the next session, so that they will know, okay, today, for example, let's say I'm doing let's say a straight pass, okay, a straight pass. Then how is this going to be linked to the next session? For example, okay, today we did a straight pass. Next week we're doing a cross pass. And it's also important to invite feedback from your participants, especially during the first few sessions. All right, allocate three to 5 minutes, all right, to ask question, to invite feedback from them, to see how you can how you can improve your session, and also to check with them how they feel about your first e-coaching session, and inform them of the next session. So as what I mentioned earlier on, your sessions may not be very regular, all right? So tell them, okay, the next session could be on a Friday, on a Saturday, what time would that be, all right? So the last stage that we will be talking about will be the review stage of the coaching process. Okay, as what we have done earlier on, so what are the factors that you want to take note during the review stage? All right, so I'll give you all about 3 minutes to share with us what do you think are the factors that coaches have to take note during the review stage of the coaching process. Ask the correct questions. What went wrong, what went right, for improvement, be open to feedback, students to share takeaway from a session, know that what went well, being able to observe everyone effectively, getting feedback from participants, understanding of action, purpose, application, limitation, yeah. Taper expectations, all right. Okay, give positive comment and encourage what was good to continue, what can be done better from both points, coach and participants. Okay, you all run a session, all right. Okay, so give me. Okay, so most of you have given your views on what are the factors that we have to consider during the review stage of the coaching process. So basically the review stage will be after your session, what do you do during the review stage of the coaching cycle, all right? So first of all, we have to compare outcomes to goals, okay, and reflect on the session as what you have mentioned, most of you have mentioned. So the outcome, is it what you want to achieve based on what you have said in the beginning, all right? So if not, why? Reflect on the session. So what went well, okay? What did not go so well, and how can you improve on the next session? And it's also good to document what happened during the session so that you have a record and you have something to refer to, okay? And it's also good to create document for feedback, especially if you don't have time to cater for feedback during the session itself. So one example could be a Google form where you can set it up with some questions, and then you can just send it to your participants for feedback. Okay, then plan for your next session by identifying key learning points, okay, which will help you to deliver a more effective session. So as for coaches, if you become more familiar with this review process, all right, in the long run, you'll be able to deliver increasingly effective session that will benefit your participants. Okay. Okay. Yeah. To conclude this session, all right, we understand that COVID-19 have so-called affected the way we conduct our training session, all right, but the principles of coaching remains the same. So as you can see that when we walk through you this session, we still use the coaching process. All right, it doesn't change. You still have your plan, you still have your deliver, you still have your review. Yep. So it's still the same. It's just that we are bringing it into the virtual world. And it's also time for us as coaches, all right, to bring our coaching session online. Yep. And this will actually, in fact, create more opportunities for us to connect with our athletes or participants. So in the past, your physical training session could be maybe twice a week. All right, with this e-coaching session, perhaps you could be even seeing them maybe up to seven times a week. All right, but it will not be a very long session. It could be maybe 20 minutes or 15 minutes to give feedback to them, to provide feedback to them on their performances, right? And I also feel that this is also a very good opportunity for us to add value beyond the knowledge of coaching and to further improve ourselves. For example, I think it's time that we upgrade ourselves with IT knowledge, all right? How we can do our coaching online, and yeah, and we can also use this time to upgrade ourselves in terms of interpersonal skills, how we connect with our athletes, participants, even their parents as well. Okay. All right. So in the beginning of this session, some of you have voted that you have already started some e-coaching session. All right. Would you want to share your experience with the coaches here? Anyone? So you want done? Okay. Danny, would you like to share?
Okay, basically, the first challenge I had was the first group I had was way too big. As you explained, you should actually start with a smaller group. I actually help out a fellow coach to actually conduct mindfulness training for their swimmers. So to teach them actually how to do breath controls. And the session went well. The only thing is the group was way too big and I can't do a check-in on whether everybody actually understands the concept. But then after that, I check in with the coach again after a few days. The participant actually practiced what was taught on that day itself. So, and also we toggle within using slides to teach them the mindfulness platters of diet. Beside a healthy diet, they also have to balance their mental capability. So these are theory that is shared with the swimmers as well. Yeah, and also I did one more with my coaches, and that one I faced problem with the video sharing, and after that then I learned that where was the hiccups, and then after that rectified with the whole things again. So overall it was challenging but interesting learning platform for myself. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much. So yeah, so you heard from him that when he was delivering his first e-coaching session, all right, there are bound to be some difficulties that we will face. But then, I mean, as coaches, a lot of times we want our athletes to overcome some challenges during the training session. So I think it's also, as coaches ourselves, I think we do have the skills, the mindset to overcome these challenges that we meet, all right, that we will face during this difficult situation. And definitely, I'm confident that all of us will walk out of this situation stronger, yeah, and as a much better coach. Right.